I found him! Hi, Daddy.
Who let you in here, Garcia?
Ruth, what the hell do you think you're doing?
Andy, Nicolette, this is your new home.
Roseanne Barr is out for revenge against Meryl Streep, who stole her husband in She-Devil. That's one of 5 new big holiday movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie is She-Devil, and this is a movie that has generated an enormous amount of curiosity among the many fans of TV star Roseanne Barr. You could almost make a movie about this movie, and the plot would be about how a few years ago Roseanne Barr couldn't even afford to go see a Meryl Streep movie, and now she's co-starring in one. In the film, Barr stars as an ordinary, unglamorous housewife whose husband is an accountant. One night at a charity benefit, Roseanne bumps into a famous author of trashy bestsellers, played by Meryl Streep.
Oh, Bob, look at I just spilled my wine on the famous author, Mary Fisher. I read all of your books.
That's very nice.
Ruth, why don't you go get some salt and some Perrier to remove the stain? Hurry, honey, hurry.
That's Ed Begley Jr. as Roseanne's husband. He ditches her in a second and moves in with the sexy Streep. But Barr counterattacks with strategies like this one, where she brings her children to live with the new loving couple.
Ruth, you are really depraved.
Someone get this deranged woman out of here. Garcia!
You take care, kids. And remember, no matter what, I love you both very much.
Sylvia Miles co-stars in the movie as Streep's outspoken mother. When Roseanne springs Miles from an old folks' home and reunites her with her daughter, some embarrassing facts are revealed.
You would think a 41-year-old woman would have learned to appreciate her mother.
You would think that a mother would appreciate the very expensive nursing home her daughter pays for.
Mary, I thought you were 34.
She-Devil is a movie that depends on spite, jealousy, and revenge for a lot of its jokes, and with Roseanne Barr as the spiteful and jealous other woman, the revenge takes some nasty turns as when she sets out methodically to destroy all of the most important areas of her husband's life. Meryl Streep has a lot of fun with the role of the best-selling author, who is kind of a cross between Jackie Collins and Barbara Cartland, and Ed Begley Jr. is perfectly cast as the smug, lustful, weak-willed husband. The best surprise in the movie, though, is that Roseanne Barr not only holds her own with those seasoned actors, but even develops some subtle aspects of her She-Devil character, who is not only a vindictive demon, but also a woman whose feelings we can identify with.
I didn't like the picture at all in any way, except possibly for some of the quiet moments that you just hinted at, where Roseanne Barr is playing an ordinary person and the camera just lingers on her, and without really talking, she communicates the pain, if you will, of the ordinary woman in the face of this, beautiful person or this beautiful life.
Yeah.
But I was fully expecting scenes between Roseanne Barr and Meryl Streep, lots of scenes between them, a tug-of-war, if you will. Not there at all. I was expecting Meryl Streep in her first comedy role since some of the scenes in Seduction of Joe Tynan to be really funny. I didn't crack a smile at anything she did. I think any actress could have played that kind of Jackie Collins role, if you will, just as well.
I disagree with you about Meryl Streep. I think she is very funny, and that she brings a characteristic to this role of the best-selling trashy authorist that probably only she could have done. She doesn't play it in a way that anybody else would have played it. She has that kind of simpering sweetness that is so cloying and so nauseating almost. And then, of course, it's punctured by Sylvia Miles, and you see that she's all a fraud. The way she does that is unique to Streep, and I think it's funny.
Well, I didn't crack a laugh, I don't think, even once. The only thing I enjoyed was that Roseanne Barr had the guts to play an unattractive person and made more unattractive, if you will, by a mole on her face. And there are a lot of stars that would never have done that. They've said, I'm just not going to submit myself to it. Barr, I think, is really the star of the picture, not Streep, or certainly not the screenplay.
But you liked her?
Barr, I admired what she did with the role. Yeah. That she's willing to go ahead and play someone not glamorous. I thought that was really good.
When you're Roseanne Barr, you don't have to have a lot of courage to play somebody who isn't glamorous.
Okay, our next film is a genuine rarity, a play that has been exceedingly well transferred from stage to screen. It's Driving Miss Daisy, the story of the curiously tentative relationship between a black chauffeur and the older, wealthy Jewish Southern white woman who reluctantly employs him. Jessica Tandy plays the old woman, and early in the film, she regularly argues with her son, Dan Aykroyd, over whether or not she really needs a driver.
You backed the car right into the Pollock's yard.
You should have let me keep my LaSalle. It never would have behaved this way, and you know it.
Mama, cars don't behave. They are behaved upon. Fact is, you demolished that Chrysler all by yourself.
Aykroyd, a surprising choice here, is very good staying in character, and here he hires Morgan Freeman as the chauffeur.
Hulk, I want you to understand something.
Yes?
My mother's a little high-strung. Now, the fact is, you'd be working for me. She can say anything she likes, but she can't fire you.
The centerpiece of the film is the strained relationship between the initially stubborn Tandy and the servile Freeman.
What are you doing?
I'm trying to drive you to the stove.
Eventually, Tandy and Freeman form a bond as they age together, especially after she takes sick.
Hulk,
Yes.
you're my best friend.
No, go on now, Miss
No,
Daisy. You
really. You are.
As directed by Australian Bruce Beresford, who also made the film Tender Mercies in this country, Driving Miss Daisy is one of the most quiet films to come out of Hollywood recently. These are superior actors, and they're allowed quiet time on screen. Nothing is hurried, and so we're given the time to study their characters, to figure out just who this driver is. He's more than just a kindly old black man, and she's more than just an average crotchety old lady in the movies. They lead very specific lives, and thanks to director Beresford's exquisite pacing of the film, we get to enjoy all of that. Driving Miss Daisy is truly something rare.
I completely agree with you. This is a rare film, and it's a wonderful film. And one of the things about it, as I was thinking back over it, even as you were reviewing it, is these two actors, Morgan Freeman and Jessica Tandy, neither one of them allow the slightest speck of sentimentality to get into their performances or into their characters. These are two people who are not, as you say, the kindly old black chauffeur and the sweet little Southern lady. These are two people with very strong ideas about who they are and very strong ideas about the society that has shaped them, so that they behave in certain ways toward each other and change very slowly, but they do change as times change until finally, in that unforgettable last scene of the movie, they have come together as two human beings, essentially.
They change in a slower way, not more than any movie characters that I can think of changing recently. I mean, you have people going through all sorts of, whole life transitions in the movies, from scene to scene frequently. It's very guarded. It's almost like this picture is going in slow motion in our movie minds, because we're saying if this is a standard play, this thing should be, there should be epiphanies every moment.
It's really true to life. It's really true to life, the way that, for example, when she goes to hear Martin Luther King speak,
great
because
sequence.
she's a liberal Southerner, so she'll go hear Martin Luther King, but she won't give her extra ticket to her driver, you see, because she didn't know if he'd be interested in seeing Martin Luther King or not. Well, what does she think? And that's what he lets her know in his own way, you see, because she's talking about how things have changed, and he says things haven't changed all that much, Miss Daisy, This
isn't Steel Magnolias, a frivolous little film. This is a strong, well-done transference from play to film.
If last year is any guide, December is going to give us a lot of next year's Academy Award nominees, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tandy and Freeman are not too.
They both deserve it.
For sure. Coming up next, The War of the Roses with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner, married for better and definitely for worse.
And you better get yourself a damn good lawyer.
Best your money can buy.
This movie is The War of the Roses. Unlike She-Devil, this is another comedy where all that holds a marriage together is how much the partners hate one another. The movie stars Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner as Oliver and Barbara Rose, who have been married for 17 years before the trouble starts, when Barbara gets tired of living her life through a man and she wants out.
I just want to smash your face in.
Smash my face. Come on. You want to smash my face?
Danny DeVito directed the movie and co-stars as the lawyer who remembers the sad story of their breakup.
Oliver, there is no winning in this. It's only degrees of losing.
Little by little, step by step, the War of the Roses escalates into mortal combat.
Come on.
You can understand this scene if you know that Barbara is a cat person and Oliver has run over her cat with his car. She wants revenge, and Oliver is a dog person.
Nobody who makes pate this good can be all bad.
That depends on what the pate is made of.
The movie gets most of its laughs out of the inexorable progress of this married couple to the point of no return. They're two stubborn people. Neither one will back down. And when they want to really hurt one another, they know exactly what buttons to push. They know where all the buttons are. If this movie has a weak point, it might be that it goes so far that for some audiences it probably goes right over the top. But you've got to give DeVito, Douglas, and Turner credit. They do not stop in this movie to take any hostages.
And that's exactly why I think it's one of the best films of the year, because this is a gutty little production. Think about it. Danny DeVito, very popular actor with his old Romancing the Stone cast, and it's a surefire hit if they make it light. That has to be going through everybody's mind, and they don't make it light. They get darker and darker. And so if it turns off some audiences, these are real filmmakers. They've really written a story here. It's based on a novel, but they've adapted a script, and they haven't cheaped it out. And I think that's to be encouraged, and I think it's incredibly entertaining, and I think the film is very sharp about marriages in this time, in the 80s. I think that a couple decades from now, people look back and this picture will still hold some meaning as revealing this preoccupation with decorating your home, but not decorating the life between the two partners.
What's amazing is that even though it is a comedy, the backbone of the movie is truth. It's about people. Nobody can hate somebody like somebody who has lived with that person 24 hours a day for, in this case, 17 years. They know everything about the other person, and so when they hurt the other person, it really hurts.
The movie is also very well directed by Danny DeVito. He comes up with a great image to typify their whole marriage. The two of them, Turner and Douglas, are hanging on a chandelier, and we see it overhead. It's been jerry-rigged for destruction by one of them for the other, and they're just hanging on this thing desperate. And if that doesn't sum up visually their marriage, I don't know anything does. It's a beautiful directing job. The movies have been so soft this decade, it's nice to finish with a strong one. Coming up next, the movie Glory, based on the true story of the first all-black regiment of the Union Army in the Civil War. Matthew Broderick leads the troops. This Glory, and like Driving Miss Daisy, this is another admirable film that turns out to be surprisingly entertaining. You know, sometimes admirable is another way of saying boring or cloying, but not with Glory. It's based on the true story of the first all-black regiment formed in the Union Army during the Civil War, the 54th Regiment of the Massachusetts Volunteer Army. It's about both the young white officer placed in charge and about the ways the various black soldiers relate to each other. Matthew Broderick plays the young colonel in command who wins the confidence of the men when he joins their protest against being paid less than white soldiers.
If you men will take no pay, then none of us will.
Alone together at night, the soldiers from radically different backgrounds square off against each other. Here, Denzel Washington and Andre Brower confront each other.
I am a free man, as was my father before me.
Oh, you
Yes.
Oh, good. Well, why don't you move your free black ass on out my space before I have to bust it up?
Hold up there, Buck.
Ain't nobody said nothing to you, pap.
Another confrontation is between Denzel Washington and Morgan Freeman. And the very real issue here is, again, who is more black than who?
See, so the white man give you a couple of stripes. Next thing you know, you hollering, ordering everybody around like you the master himself. You ain't nothing but the white man's dog.
And what are you? So full of hate you just want to go out and fight everybody.
As a period film, Glory works well, taking on a theatrical glow as the troops, after much protest, finally see battle and are cheered en route by white regiments.
Get down, 54! Get down!
There's a lot to like about Glory. By giving lots of time to the soldiers all alone, we get to see them as more than simply black men. They're so different that they become not merely standard Hollywood blacks, but true individuals. And there are shots, particularly when the regiment walks through the streets of Boston and we see young black children looking at these soldiers proudly, that I think Glory takes on some true social significance. Dramatically, the film also works because of its surprising conclusion. Director Edward Zwick from TV's 30-something has cast the film very well. This is a strong, big film, not an overblown TV miniseries that it might have been, I think, in other hands.
I agree with everything you said. I have one problem with the film, and that is, of course, they have to somehow bring in a white character and make him the lead. This is just like Cry Freedom, which should have been the story of Denzel Washington as a South African freedom fighter and became the story of Kevin Kline escaping to Zambia. Why can't they just tell a story about black soldiers in the Civil War? Why do they always have to bring in some star like Kevin Kline or Matthew Broderick in order to give it some box office appeal?
Well, that you just named the reason. However, and when the film started, I had the same thoughts you did. After a while, I really forgot about Matthew Broderick. I got involved. I don't think the film is really cut the way you're suggesting.
I mean, when you have actors like Morgan Freeman and Denzel Washington as the story of black soldiers, then let's give them more screen time instead of seeing where somebody else can redeem himself by being their brave leader.
To be fair, they had a white leader. They had given him, and it was a token kind of leadership. So the film is revealing that fact. But I thought the film did a pretty good job on that. I agree. The start out is real weak.
Yeah, because I don't want to give the wrong impression that I'm not criticizing Matthew Broderick's performance here. In fact, I think it's one of his best pieces of work. I'm criticizing the direction in the screenplay, not Broderick as an actor. Coming up next, Enemies, a love story. It's the Paul Mazursky comedy about a man who can't make up his mind about anything except to be married to 3 women at the same time.
I can't believe you've come to me under these circumstances.
No, please. My head is exploding.
It's named Enemies, a love story, and it stars Ron Silver as a refugee from Nazi Poland who makes a fresh start in New York in the years after the war. But he leads a complicated life, very complicated, because as the movie opens, he has a wife in Brooklyn and a mistress in the Bronx. The mistress is played by Lena Olin, and she knows about the wife, but the wife thinks that when Silver is away, he's out of town on business.
I must stay here in Baltimore another day. In a bookstore. Yeah, I'm in a bookstore. It's a jungle bookstore.
Then an amazing thing happens. Silver's first wife, played by Angelica Houston, turns up in New York. He was told that she was killed in the war, but she's alive after all. He tells her about his impossible private life.
How do you manage it? Do you rush from one to the other?
I do the best I can. It's not so easy.
Silver's Brooklyn wife, played by Margaret Sophie Stein, is the simple-minded peasant who saved his life from Nazi soldiers. When Angelica Houston shows up at her door, she thinks she's seen a ghost.
God! God! Don't get about the ghost! The ghost!
When Silver's mistress gets pregnant, he marries her too. Now, where to turn for advice? Where else but to the first of his 3 wives?
Well, congratulations. You're going to be a father again.
I'm crazy, that's the truth.
Were you always like this, or did the war do it?
Enemies, a love story, was directed by Paul Mazursky, who had another pretty goofy marriage in his great comedy Down and Out in Beverly Hills, and it's based on a story by Isaac Bashevis Singer. At first, I thought it was simply going to be a screwball comedy, but it develops depth and emotions, especially in a wonderful performance by Lena Olin as the mistress who becomes the 3rd wife. It's a movie that grows on you, and it adds up to more than you anticipate.
Oh, it grew on me very much so. In fact, I think it's one of the saddest films that I've seen in quite a long time. The comedy element really disappeared very quickly for me. And I began to see that this picture, and written by Isaac Bashevis Singer, is very much about its time, where you have people who have been through the Nazi Holocaust, who have been really ruptured. They can't find, I mean, in addition, because he can't make up his mind, these people are all fractured, and deeply hurting. And he almost can't make up his mind because he doesn't have a mind anymore. It's almost been taken away from him in some way. He has very strong survival feelings. He wants to make love to Lena Olin. I mean, just at that simple level. He's tired of his wife. Yes, she did save him, but he wants to live a little bit. He's been dying for so long.
Another interesting character in this movie is the Angelica Houston character.
Wonderful character.
First wife, the one who knows him the best. When she sees him, they start fighting again right away, and then she says, he says, I'm married. She says, you got a mistress? She knows he probably has a mistress. And then she says, in this country, we have something called a manager. I'll be your manager. I thought that was a very good scene.
Yes.
She'll try to tell him what to do. But I don't think you should... Sure, it's a sad movie, but it's a funny movie, too. I mean,
well, for me, it was more sad than funny, but that doesn't mean it was any less entertaining.
Okay.
Well, why do films have to be so upbeat all the time?
Well, I don't say they have to be. I'm just saying it's not as... I didn't think it was as sad as you thought it was.
So, that's your taste.
Okay,
that's your reaction.
well, I have
That's your
taste.
nice surface reaction.
Thank you very much.
The funny parts. Okay, now let's recap our reactions to the movies on this show. A split split vote on She-Devil, with Roseanne Barr and Meryl Streep battling over a man. I think the film wasn't the least bit funny or that Streep wasn't anything special, but Roger disagrees and enjoyed both lead performers. 2 thumbs up, however, for Driving Miss Daisy, written by Alfred Ury and featuring fine performances by Morgan Freeman and Jessica Tandy, Oscar-caliber performances. 2 more enthusiastic thumbs up for Danny DeVito's The War of the Roses, a great portrait of marriage in ruins in the 1980s, an uncompromisingly good film. 2 more thumbs up for Glory, about the all-black regiment in the Civil War. Roger liked it, but wished that a white character hadn't been the lead. That didn't bother me as much as the strong story did develop. And finally, 2 more thumbs up for Paul Mazursky's Enemies, a Love Story, a portrait of Jewish refugees in America looking for love just after World War II. Roger thought it was funnier than I did, but we both recommend it quite strongly, and what a great lineup. 9 out of 10 votes were thumbs up.
Okay, next week we'll review more of the big holiday movies, including We're No Angels, starring Robert De Niro and Sean Penn as crooks posing as priests, and also Family Business, a heist thriller starring Sean Connery, Dustin Hoffman, and Matthew Broderick as 3 generations of crooks. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.